What is going on with my hair? I don't know what's going on with my hair, but I'm just going to go with it. Guess I'll move around. Welcome. I see that some of you guys are here waiting for me. Me and my oily hair, which I guess I'm going to shampoo after I get done here, and I mop because I have to mop. I got friends coming over tomorrow, and I don't want them to see that I haven't mopped in a while. It's not as clean as I would like it to be at the house, but I'm going to take care of that in just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit today about um, the paranormal. Why? Because I've always been one of those people that has had those experiences my entire life, going back to when I was about 3 years old. When I was about 3 years old, we were living somewhere in Alabama. My father was working at a bank. My father was a banker all of his years. Um, and I remember being about 3 years old and seeing this guy in this gray uniform with a sword in the street and being very frightened. I've since looked back at that memory many times because this is one of my earliest memories. I must have been 3 or 4 years old. Hey, Bliss, 3 or 4 years old, and I saw this thing. Well, years later, I'm thinking, that's it. Hey, Christine, that's a Civil War soldier I saw that day. So that was really, for me, the very first time I became very interested in the paranormal was after that as a kid. And it has just grown through the years. Now, here in Costa Rica, I've had almost no experiences. I'm going to talk about that in a second, too. I think I figured out the why on that one. Okay. So, if you know who I am, I used to write for Pathos, a column called No Longer Quivering for 10 years about the quiverful evangelical movement. Hey, Nitwit. Hey, love my grands. Hey, everybody. So here you see, I've seen almost nothing, and I had to think about it for a hot minute. Here, people, they move slower. It's a slower pace of life. People aren't leaving as many bits of unfinished business on this side here than they are in the States, I think. I think that's what's driving the fact that you can see, I've seen a lot more of these things in the United States than here. I saw one recently here. We were backing our car up by the Brasilito Bridge, and our car, the backup camera saw it. It was a white mist. I saw it. It was a white mist. My husband didn't see it. He was just like, what is back there that the camera's telling us? Well, he didn't see it, but it was a distinct white mist, roughly humanoid shape and size. And then it just dissolved like that. So that's been an interesting thing being here. So I think because people here live more natural lives, they have a lot less unfinished business. The way that the culture is here is just so very different, so much more forgiving and nice. And I enjoy that aspect of it so much. Like if you fall down, people will help you up. When things happen, people will help you. Now, you sometimes will get the gringo shuffle. Will try to take money off of you. So the only other sighting I've seen since being in Costa Rica was a dear friend of mine. He died, and it was a tragic thing because about 2 weeks before he died, he was talking to me and saying that he was afraid of dying because he was afraid he would be leaving his King German Shepherd, Sammy, alone. He was afraid that Sammy wouldn't let people in. Well, I told him then, I said, if you do pass and Sammy's there, I said, Sammy is a smart dog. Sammy will be smart enough to let the rescuers through to help you. And that's exactly what happened with my friend Nigel. He died of a heart attack in the middle of the night. And Sammy let the rescuers in. They were able to get him. I was really saddened by that because it was about 2 weeks. Oh, thank you, Nitwit. It's going right in my yarn fund. Thank you very much. It was about 2 weeks before he died that we started this conversation about death. And it was kind of weird because I've had this conversation a couple of times in my life with people who ended up passing within a week or two of the conversation. One of those was with my father. who called me up and said he kept having this dream every night for a week where he dreamed that he was in a hospital bed, and the doctors were telling myself, my stepmother, and my stepbrother that he was brain dead and we had to switch the machinery off. And he said he was still in there and he was screaming for us not to do it. Well, hey, Tamara, that created quite a interesting dilemma for me, because a week later he had a stroke, he was brain dead, and we had to turn off the machinery. And I'm kind of glad he told me about it and he told me his thoughts on being kept artificial alive, because I was able to say, look, let's turn this off, let's let him go, because there's no coming back from brain dead. So that's what we did with him. And it was a precious time. I was in the room with him when he passed. You could just feel the presence of the Holy Spirit with him, with I. It was just a very precious time. And he's returned to me a couple of times, mostly in dreams, telling me where stuff is that I didn't know about. One of the things that's been kind of weird, though, through the years is the situations where I'm not looking to have any kind of experience and something just shows up. I've had those more times than I could count. I remember being about 15 or 16 years old and going to Galveston Beach and just freaking out because I saw people everywhere. So through the years, I've learned how to put kind of a wall so that I don't see too many weird things that I can't handle. A lot of people who have those abilities, they have to do it, because if they don't have some kind of internal mechanism going on, they're going to see stuff they don't want to see all the time. And that's kind of been how it has been with me too. Now, there are times that I've gone out to places like the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I walked up, everything in there started, well, not everything, but you could see at that point, you could hear the children's ward, you could hear all the children playing and see the ball rolling up in the children's ward. And I started hearing doors closing left and right all over the facility. I've had experiences too, but I really try not to fully give into it, because I definitely don't want to see things all the time. But I do take a quick note of it and then think about something else. Bliss, sometimes I'll have to do that too, unless I'm doing something like I'm trying to walk up to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which I didn't know was closed on Mondays, so I didn't get to go inside. But that was okay, because there was enough reactions on the outside that I could hear and see on the inside. I was perfectly fine being outside. For me, one of the things that I do, and this is just my inquisitive mind, is if I have a weird experience, I write it down. I write it down in my little notebook, and later I go ahead and I research it. Like if a friend of ours moved into a house, and I was there by myself one morning, and something materialized and told me what his name was and the whole 9 yards, and it was a person who owned the house before, and they were mad. They were mad at what my friends had done to the house, really furious. And I was able to research, and sure enough, it was the woman who owned the house previously. She gave me the right name and everything. I couldn't have called that up. Hey, Marlene, how are you doing? And Michelle. So I had to have an old job. There was a child laughing. We had no children on campus. Michelle, what happens? So we had that at a place I worked too. I used to work at this quilt store that was in a church that went back to the 1700s. And we would routinely, you would hear hymns in there. You would hear hymns, people walking around, doors closing. So we got that all the time there. And it's just like, imagine what the previous owners. Java Man, that's a brand new house. I thought they had that thing built for them. That was the thing I was told. Marlene, I've hit a snag with the book. I've had 2 different publishers turn me down because of Without a Box of Kleenex. They feel like she's going to impact sales. So I'm having to rewrite some sections, because one of the things I did this summer is I spent a large chunk of time with one of my best friends that we had been in the church together. And I realized that I had made a few mistakes that I had to correct. And then my husband started looking at it and said, You got to split this chapter. You got to do this, got to do that. So I'm in the process of doing all that. And I'm going to self-publish. That's what I'm going to have to do. And if she reads it aloud on her channel, I'm going to have to hit her with a strike. That's all there is to it. And information on my book is going to be at my website with strangefire.com, because the name of the book is With Strange Fire. I started to put A Far Place with Strange Fire as the title, but it's too long. Basically, the book entails my time there, because we started out in this sweet, sweet, sweet country church, okay, that just followed the Bible. That was very biblical. And I loved it. I was going through a really rough time when we joined, because my youngest child had all kinds of, she had all kinds of physical problems. She had ITP, idiopathic thrombocytic purpura, I think that's how you pronounce it. And she was quite ill. We almost lost her. And they love bombed me in. And it was a great thing for the first 5 or 6 years at least. I loved it. I loved it so much I joined worship team and started singing semi-professionally. And my pastor was a wonderful guy. He, as far as music went, he was the guy who did all the directing for the Easter sunrise service on the grounds of the Capitol. We used to do that every single year. It was pretty amazing. We loved it. So there were so many things I loved. Churches of the High Plains, about ghost churches. Oh, wow, Joe. I'll have to take a look at that. So anyway, it turned after a while, and we started going weirder and weirder places. Till the very end, we were pretty much a Bethel clone in some ways. And I'm watching people praying to say dead people arise, and serious medical problems. Telling people with serious medical problems not to get help. And I saw a bunch of people die. And that was the other thing. Once the pastor found out I had the ability to see dead people sometimes, he started trying to exploit that. He would tell me, you really have the gift of discernment and blah, 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 all this. And we started doing ghost busting in the church. At least that's what my husband calls it. Going and cleansing people's homes where they had evil spirits and crap. And I still kind of believe in that to an extent. Like when I go to a hotel room, one of the things I do is I pray over the room and say, nothing that's not peace, light, and can come in this place and protected by Jesus. Oh, how do you say that? And we buy a house, like we bought this house, and go around and anoint the doorposts with olive oil and the fence posts and pray over it. Pray that it's a peaceful place. So I've always done that, but my pastor discovered that, and he would sometimes point at me to give words of knowledge. And it started getting stranger and stranger. He and several other people went to a house that was reputed to be haunted, and they took that on. They took on attacking and cleansing the house. And they weren't doing all the stuff that they tell you to do. They were doing the Bethel thing. They didn't try to cleanse it by using any kind of salt or olive oil or burning sage, bringing an Indian shaman. They didn't do any of that. They just were like, Spirit of Jesus. And I get to a hotel room, I'll give it a once over with Lysol wipes, so trust housekeeping, disinfectant. Job man, I do that too. And then I pull up the sheets and look and make sure that the mattress does not have bed bugs. I'm funny about that. So I like my hotel rooms clean. I like them nice. But the whole thing with the church was they were doing all of that, and it just got stranger and stranger all the time. And just very odd. I remember one time, and I was on the healing team, and I was part of the healing rooms out of Seattle, and ghosts hate quaternary ammonium-based products. And they don't like sage either. So she, my pastor was doing all this weird stuff, and it was too much for me. And like I said, I've had to put walls up so I don't see these things every day, every day, every day. And I'm glad now, and I avoid places I know where there's been massive death because I don't want to see that massive death. And that's been the weird thing that's happened to me in the last, I'd say, 10 years. Is if it's somebody I know and I see them after they pass, they almost always show me what their death was like. And all I can say is I now know what it feels like to have a heart attack, even though I've never had a heart attack. I know what certain illnesses feel like, and it's not fun or pleasant. It's not anything that I look for. It's just something that happens around me. Yeah, so now you know my dreadful, horrible secret and how the church was trying to exploit my secret. The funny thing is in the first so many years of our church thing, I was told that my secret was evil and demonic. And there's always people who are going to tell you anytime you do anything a little odd, they're going to tell you evil, demonic. This afternoon, I had somebody show up at Jerks for Jesus that was doing the evil. You're evil. You're spreading wickedness and lies. And I just kind of laughed them off and copied their thing, put them on Jerks for Jesus because it was just kind of funny how much they were just ranting. And I don't know. I don't know why people do that sort of thing, but they sure do. They sure do, and I worry about them when they start with that stuff. So we're staying in the downtown area of San Jose, and I'm curious to see if I'm going to see something now that I know we're staying right in the oldest part of the city. The last time we drove through that area was prostitutes like crazy all night long. But this, I don't know. We're staying in the place that they may try to serve us haggis for all I know. Haggis. And like I was saying earlier, I've had so many of these experiences, but the worst is when it's somebody you know, and you know they need to get to the other side. They don't need to be hanging around on this side. They need to go. And it's really hard. I think the hardest for me was my friend Nigel. And I just finally had to say, hey, Nigel, you're not supposed to be on this side. You're supposed to be on the other side. Let's get you there. Let's get you there. And Nigel had reached out to me because he had left a lot of unfinished business, and he asked me to tell various people that he didn't really hate them. And I told him, I said, I've already told them that because I knew you didn't really hate them. I knew that you just didn't know how to apologize and get back to them. You just didn't know how to do it. That was just not your nature. So that was a kind of a fun and horrible experience at the same time. And that's only one of the two times since I've been here that I've seen anything like that, unlike in the US where I would routinely see this crap. Oh, so, and what do you think? Do you think these things exist? Do you think that maybe they don't? I mean, I I'm open to a lot of different things just because of some of the experiences I've had in my lifetime. Hey, Moonchild Pink. Um, and it was like so many things I found out recently about all sorts of things having to do with the spirit realm and various weird people. So um, that's really it. I'm still doing some family tree research because I've been intrigued by finding out that I was related to people that came from Canary Islands. I'm looking at that hard, discovering, okay, that makes sense as to why I have a small amount of African blood, not even African blood. And once I saw where it was coming from, it's like, oh yes, I'm glad. I'm glad to be able to trace it back and to prove it. Makes a lot of sense. I live with the same secret. People won't understand home exhausting it is. It is quite exhausting. I stayed in a hotel room one time and I forgot to do my little prayer and say, you can't come in here, you can't do this, you can't do that. I forgot to cleanse the room and I just went to sleep. I got poked awake in the middle of the night by somebody who had died in that room. And they had been stabbed to death, come out of a bar nearby. They got stabbed to death. I got to see and feel what the death was like. The next morning, I took names that I'd been given. I wrote them down. I looked them up. Sure enough, I found news articles about this guy getting stabbed to death 10 years before, and the police had no idea who killed him. He showed me a picture of who it was. And I ended up sending a letter anonymously to the police, but you just never know, because when you have these things happen, you really don't usually share them with people because people will say you're insane. And I kind of look at it this way. I might be insane, but too many times I've been able to back up what I've seen with like news articles and things. And it's exhausting. Like you said, it's exhausting. It takes an incredible amount of mental energy to do these things, whether you like it or not, whether you have any choice in the matter or not. And that's the thing that always kind of blows my mind, is how random it is. And Marlene, I couldn't go anywhere near the Titanic. I have a feeling I would start picking up vibes when I got close to it. And I don't know about you, but I've had times where I've gone places or been somewhere and suddenly been told, get out of there, get out of there, get out of there. And I've always obeyed, because that's the thing. If I listen to my inner voice when it's talking to me and I do what it says, everything goes fine. I started to get into trouble when I'm kind of like, shh, no, I'm doing this. That is where I have problems, is when I don't listen to what's the voice that's in here that's talking to me. And I'm not talking about the critical one we sometimes all get that says, oh, you're this, you're that, you're say, girl, that's what I got my kids for, not you. I got my kids to keep me honest and on the straight and narrow and telling me what I'm doing wrong, not you. So there you go. Kelly, Destin, Florida is that way. I did not go there. I've been to Destin many times, but I've never been to the Kelly Plantation. I'll tell you one place that I went to freak the hell out of me was, I think it's near Miami, the fort that has Robert the doll. I saw that thing when I was like about 17, 18 years old, and the vibes coming off it are scary as hell. I was just like, nope, let me out of here. Just too much. Some places have such an aura you just want to be. You do realize that KJ is going to steal the story. Oh my goodness. KJ, steal away. Tell them how you saw a white mist. Tell them how you saw a dressed up Civil War soldier. Tell them how you saw your friend at his funeral telling you that he had a heart attack and he was mad because everybody was speculating that he killed himself. Tell those stories, KJ. Be my guest. Steal it, steal it, steal it. I don't care. But if you touch my book, we're going to fight. Because I have labored with that thing. And part of the problem with laboring with the book is there are some stories that I want to tell that I know it would be World War III if I did, like the tale of a guy, I'm just going to call him Peter Jennings, because he had the exact same name as a famous newscaster. His wife and his wife and his wife's best friend were just like this until the friend slept with Peter Jennings, and then it got weird from there. Oh, turn them off. Take them off, please. I forgot. Oh my goodness, I'm such a dumbass. I had potatoes boiling on the stove. My husband just came to tell me that they're not boiling, burning. Kind of a dumbass about that sort of thing. No, I never go to murder museums or oddity shops. My power just, well, I do only occasionally. I'll go someplace like the to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I wanted to feel what was there, and I felt enough of it to know it was big and it was not good, and I backed off. I had talked to a gentleman while we were there. My husband wouldn't get out of the car. That was a really funny thing. He would kept hanging around the car and say, "Go out there," because this is where I wanted to go. I talked to a gentleman the day before that had gone to the Flunderation Tunnel, which is very near where we were. And if you don't know your history, the Flunderation Tunnel is this large railway tunnel that was cut through the mountains in West Virginia, and a lot of bad things happened. A lot of people died when they were putting it in, and people died when they were trying to do maintenance on it, people with the railway. And supposedly, if you go in the Flunderation Tunnel and you have any kind of ability, that you will see and hear the trains coming and the men screaming. I didn't want that. I did not want that experience at all, but it was interesting listening to him talk about it. And he took pictures. He was showing me his photographs that he took of the Flunderation Tunnel, and sure enough, there was something in there. The thing with the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is it is a historically significant building, so I really wanted to see it from that. Eastern State Penitentiary, I've always wanted to go there too, Bliss. And I haven't been to Fort McHenry yet, but I understand it's quite active too. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is the second largest freestanding limestone building, the first being the Kremlin in Russia. But this is the second one. It's this huge building cut from limestone, I think it was. And limestone, for some reason, is what they call tape um, tape memory, where it holds sounds they're saying about certain types of stone. And it is built of all of that kind of stone that supposedly has the tape memory going on. It's a significant place because they started building it before the Civil War. They had $3 million in gold there to pay for the building, and it was part of Virginia at that time. But these guys came along, these soldiers came along, Union soldiers, took the gold, established West Virginia as a northern stronghold for the Union. So that's how this place got built. And it wasn't just people with mental illnesses they were sticking in there. They were sticking in there people with all kinds of birth defects. They were sticking in there people who are, we used to call them mentally retarded, but I think now the term is developmentally challenged. I don't keep up with all this stuff, but they put people like that there. They put poor people who couldn't afford to go anywhere else. And so all this misery just shoved in this place since pre-Civil War, in a building that holds this tape ability to record EVPs like you're talking about. I've been to the old Charleston jail, caught 2 really clear EVPs. I am jealous. I did not go to the Charleston jail when I was in Charleston. I was just too busy squealing and running around the Righteous Gemstones places. It's like, oh my gosh, it's Locust Grove, Gemstones Church, that sort of thing. I've also wanted to always go to Philadelphia and go to the Mutter Museum. So I'm hoping to one day. Now, there have been a lot of places in Louisiana where I lived that were, quote, haunted that I've been to. One of the ones that I've actually seen a lot of stuff at is Rosedown in Louisiana. And it's near St. Francisville, I think it is. Williamsburg, same. Been to Williamsburg myself, and it's a creepy feeling. But I've seen things more than once down at Rosedown. It has kind of a tragic history. There was a, or am I confusing it with another plantation? Anyway, I've been to a lot of the old plantations down there. Almost all of them are extremely haunted. Or am I confusing it with another plantation? Anyway, I've been to a lot of the old plantations down there. Almost all of them are extremely haunted. And so is downtown New Orleans. I've seen so many crazy things in New Orleans around it. It's unbelievable, including going down to Congo Square and seeing shades of what had happened in the past there. So now I try to avoid that stuff. Why cats? Me too. And it's kind of funny. I tried to describe it to a friend of mine one time. It's like having an antenna that is tuned to a completely different frequency where almost nobody but a handful of people, are picking up the same signal. I just thought it was fascinating the time we backed the car up and I saw the white mist both behind us and in the camera display from the car. I saw it. The car saw it because it was beeping and saying you're running something, and there was nothing behind us. And my husband couldn't see it. I was like, how do you not see that? It's white clouds. But he wasn't able to see it. So who knows what's going on? I know he's very afraid of that stuff. Says he doesn't believe in it, but he also doesn't believe in UFOs, and he's seen one of those. How do you see something with your own eyes and you don't believe in it? I don't know. I've only seen 2 UFOs in my lifetime, but I believe they exist because there's just too much. Our government is hidden on that. So hopefully, I don't know if I'll come out before I go because I know they have so many things that are classified. And they're talking about releasing the UFO things, the papers. You're going to see the Holocaust sites. I already have Java Man. I went to what's the name of that place? Dachau. Arbeit macht frei. Work makes you free. I've been there. And yeah, there was some residual there, but not like a lot of places, believe it or not. I actually picked up more weirdness when I was at Hitler's mountain cabin. Now, that was a freaky experience. And so the Holocaust sites, I don't really want to go to Auschwitz. I mean, Dachau was enough. Dachau was enough. When you go to a camp like that and you look at the sheer size when they show where all the cabins have been, and you start thinking about the thousands of people that have been crowded in this place, even before they started killing when they're coming off the trains, and it's just overwhelming. Overwhelming. So I try to avoid now those places, unless I said like I'm making a special side trip to see the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum or something like that. And I've always wanted to go to the Eastern State Penitentiary. I understand the one in West Virginia is rather active too. I haven't been to that one either. And when I first got to Virginia, we lived in a place called Culpeppers where we ended up buying a house. We don't live there anymore. So I feel pretty confident to say stalk away because I don't live there anymore. When we lived in Culpeper, I couldn't get a job when we first got there. I was told, oh, you're just to come here. You're going to move away when your husband's military transfers him again. So I couldn't get a job. I couldn't even get a job working in the local department store. I was pretty shocked. I finally did get a job, and something happened. I got to tell you. I took a job at a place called the State Theater. It was an old movie theater that had been put together and put up in the golden age of movie theaters. It had a balcony and hundreds of seats. It was huge. The basement held all these props and things from vaudeville and the early projectors, the really old ones. And I was endlessly fascinated. And I worked sometimes at the State. I mostly worked at the theater that was out in the suburban area, about a mile or 2 from the State. But I would go up in the State on a regular basis. And anybody who's ever worked there has seen Mr. Pitt, the guy who built that place. We would routinely see him in the balcony. But the scariest, most eerie part of it was you'd go up there. I'd go up there to start the film. I would lay out the splicer. I would have my tape. I would have all the different tools I needed to be able to fool with the film if the film broke, and lay them all out like I wanted. Leave, lock the door, and the projection booth was about the third or fourth floor, and it was this very steep, narrow set of staircases. I had a key. The woman who was the manager there had the key. So I'd come down after locking the projection room door, go out, work the concession stand or the tickets or wherever they needed me, and then go up to press start to start the film, turn around and look, and all of the tools, the splicer, all that had been rearranged. Mr. Pitt was very particular. He liked things a certain way, and he would let you know if you were stomping on his ways. He would rearrange everything in there. It was the weirdest thing I'd have seen in a long time. But everybody who worked there almost everybody had seen him at one time or another. He was still there. And I wonder now because if he's still there, because the place was bought by a cult. I know that sounds weird, but it was a CULT of the big time kind. And it was this one that was run by this guy, been former CIA. They were practicing and preaching all kinds of just really weird stuff. And you look in there. I would every now and then I would look through the door. I still had keys to go in there if I wanted to. And you would see like rows of desks. And they had a projector. They were showing something on the giant screen. It was like weird, some weird stuff going on with them. I'd love to go to Germany. I've lived East Coast, South. First, I've been to Puerto Rico, and that was an experience. It's definitely an experience to leave the country and go even to a U.S. possession like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. Was that it? How they were saying it? I don't remember. But Puerto Rico, yeah. So this place, later I heard that they all saw Mr. Pitt up there. Then the place got bought out by a art consortium, a place that wanted to do different classic films and gallery shows and various things. So they remodeled the building, and I was really shocked they did it because when I worked at the theater, they said it was going to be a minimum of $3 million to bring it up to code. So they brought it up to code, and I was in there watching films a number of times, but the balcony was off limits, and so was the projection booth. And I started asking questions. Sure enough, everybody worked there saw Mr. Pitt. I guess he's still in there. The last I rolled through Culpeper, the art consortium had gone belly up. They busted, and the building was empty. I don't know. Huge building. Lots of bizarreness there. Yeah, Germany is a trip. I haven't been back in a long time. My husband and I are talking about returning to Germany to visit again. But we have a friend who's a German who comes and visits us here, and he has said it's changed a lot. So I don't really know. All I know is that everybody there is complaining about people coming from somewhere else. So the USA is hardly the only nation that has struggled with immigration. I'm watching all my friends in various nations talking about it, things that are happening there. And the world is just such a mess. I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not thrilled about them adding more ghosts because they're killing people in such ways that it's not a settled thing for them. And I feel pretty sure that a lot of them are still hanging around, which is kind of a depressing thought. I don't really want to go anyplace like that anymore. Okay, you guys, I got to go rescue my burned potatoes. Our mental asylum that has been torn down was where Houdini practiced getting out of a straitjacket. Ooh, cheap glass, that would be interesting. That would definitely be an interesting place to go into. Definitely. And Houdini had told his wife, I believe it was, I read, that he was going to come back if he passed before her, he was going to come back. And apparently she did hold seances but I don't think she ever contacted him at all. I don't know. I'm curious as to what it's like on the other side. And I'm tempted to come back just to see if I can. When I pass, it would be fun. Say hi. And I also wanted to write out before I leave. Pets have come back for me. I've had a bird that came back many times. We'd hear him. He would get on. He would get on our lamp in the kitchen and start pecking on it. We'd hear him. I had a cat that I had to put down. He had cancer all over, and I loved that cat so much. A little bit. He was my favorite kitty I've ever had the pleasure of being around. He came back. He came back and said goodbye to me, and it was a really precious moment. Helped a lot. And then the next day, all the other kitties in my household were trying to console me because my heart was broken. And that very day, I was working in the yard. I was picking fruit, cleaning up my vegetable garden, doing various things, and my iPad kept my iPad, not iPad. Why do they have to start everything with I? I understand, but iTunes, my thing I had kept flipping on, and it kept flipping on to this one song that was talking about after Jesus came back and said, no names, no teardrops, every teardrop is wiped away, only love and peace remain. And it kept flipping over and over to this one song with that chorus. And I was always shocked by that. It did it like 7 or 8 times. And I was like, okay, little bitter, you must be trying to tell me something. I'm just going to take this as a message from beyond and go with it from there. So, okay, you guys, I got to go rescue my potatoes and say, I'm sorry that I'm such an incompetent person. I also have a quilt I've got to do the hard thing where you put the backing, the quilt batting, and then the top on top. I got to do that tonight too. Plus, mop the floors, which I hate with a passion. Okay, you guys, love you. Now you know my deepest secret. It's a stupid one, but it is what it is. And I'll see you later.